everyone! So what we are looking at today is lesson 1. We're going to be dealing with place value today. So we're going to be looking at decimals and all the different place values that we have. You're going to be practicing with identifying what place value a number is in and taking and writing out the numbers in standard form. So we're going to start by looking at place value. Now, as I said in the initial video, there will be a keyword every lesson. Don't worry, I make it super obvious, like I've said. I'll say the keyword is, and then I'll tell you exactly what it is, and I'll repeat it a few times throughout the video. So just make sure you're listening for that, because that does get you some points. So make sure you're listening for that keyword, okay? Alright, so let's begin. So looking at, this, we are talking about place values. So to start, we're looking at different patterns. So we're going to look at these patterns and see what we notice about place value from them. So to start, we have 10 times 1 equals 10. Then 10 times 10 equals 100. 10 times 100 equals 1,000. So if we look at those, each time the number we're multiplying by is going up a different place value, and as a result, it's moving our product, the answer to our multiplication problem, up another place value. So 10 times 1. 1 is the smallest place value we have other than decimals, so it keeps the number the same. We stayed with the 10. 10 is the next place value up, so when we took 10 times 10, it's going to bump it up the next place value up to 100. After 100 is 1,000, just like what we have here. So we're going up a place value every single time. So what pattern did we notice when multiplying we go up a place value? Now, the second line we have here is 10 divided by 10 equals 1, 100 divided by 10 equals 10, and 1,000 divided by 10 equals 100. So looking at that, what's happening in each of these cases? Well, we're taking 10 and dividing by 10 and going down to 1. We're taking 100 and dividing it by 10, and we're going down to 10. We're taking 1,000 and dividing it by 10, and we go down to 100. So when we divide by 10, we're going down a place value each time. So when dividing by 10, we go down a place value. So place value is all about our tens. So each time we multiply or divide by a 10, it's either going to bump us up a place value or down a place value, depending on what we're doing. So what place value looks like, I'm going to show you a chart. Lovely chart here. So we have this place value chart. So we have decimals included in this because, yes, we are going to be dealing with decimals, but we also have all of our whole numbers because a lot of what we're going to look at to start off with is going to be numbers that are whole numbers rather than decimals. So looking at this place value chart, we've got our decimal, and then in front of that we've got the ones, which include ones, tens, and hundreds. Then we've got the thousands, which is 1,000s, 10,000s, and 100,000s. Then we have the millions, which includes 1 millions, 10 millions, 100 millions. Then we have the billions, which includes 1 billion, or 1 billions, 10 billions, and 100 billions. Now, what you might notice here is, in this first section, we have the ones, tens, hundreds. What happens when we go up to the thousands? Again, we have 1, tens, hundreds. Same thing with millions. So you're going to keep seeing that 1, 10, 100, or 1, 10, 100 repeated with each new level within the place value chart. So it's going to keep going up. We're going to keep seeing the ones, the tens, the 100s, but we're going to be moving higher up in our place values by having them billions and millions and thousands. So we keep adding those zeros on, or other digits depending on the case of our numbers. Now, after the decimal, we have tenths, then hundredths, then thousands. Now, once again, tens, hundreds, but this time thousands. We don't have a 1th. Just doesn't exist. The first number after the decimal, instead of being the ones, since that's the first one in front of, it's the tenths. And all of our decimal values, they're going to end in a THS. So it's not tens and hundreds and thousands. We wouldn't know if that means before the decimal or after the decimal. That's why they're two different things. So remember, if you're talking about a number after the decimal, it needs to have that THS on it because it's a decimal, not a whole number. So we always start with tenths. That's the first place after the decimal. Then we go to hundredths, which is even smaller. And then we go to thousands, which is smaller yet. So the further to, let's see, for you guys, we're just going to say this way because video confusing me on left and right. So the further this way we go, the larger the number is. The further to this direction we go, the smaller the number is. So thousands is smaller than tenths. But over here, thousands is larger than tens. So be careful with that. Like I said, the further this way we go, the smaller the number is. Let's see, that would be to the right. Hopefully it's to the right for you guys in this video. To the right, it gets smaller. To the left, it's getting bigger. So if you want to take and get this all wrote down in some notes for yourself, because this is going to be helpful when you're taking and determining what a certain number is, if you have to write it out and determine, okay, what's this number? You can write it out in this chart and see, okay, that's 100 million, 101 million, and so on and so forth. So this can be really helpful. So go ahead, if you need to, pause the video and get this wrote down in some notes for yourself because it'll be helpful throughout the coming lessons that we do, okay? So go ahead and pause and write this down. Alrighty. Now, our key word for this lesson is place value. Because what we're looking at the most is place value here, really want to emphasize knowing those different place values, knowing what order they go in, and so forth. So your key word for this lesson is place value. Alright, on to the second section of this lesson. So, what we want to take and do is write each number in standard form. Now, you may be wondering what standard form is. Standard form is the basic way we're used to seeing our number. It's the actual number wrote out. So, for example, it could be 3,961. That is standard form. Now, the two forms that we have here, this first one is what's known as word form. Makes sense. It's the number wrote out in words. And then this one down here is expanded form. So when writing in expanded form, we have to write things out and write each place value as its own number added to the other numbers. So it can get a little confusing because there's a lot of zeros and a lot of different values all trying to be combined together. So you have to be really, really careful on the expanded form going into standard form, okay? All right, so if we look at this first one, we have 40 billion, 48 million. So start with our 40 billion. So we know from our, let's see if I can get the place value chart up here. We know from our place value chart that 40 billion, that's going to be in the tens, so that's why we have the 4 and then 0 and then comma. Then we move on to the millions. Well, do we have 100 million? No, we don't. We only have 48 million, so we're going to put a 0 because we need that placeholder because we don't have any 100 millions, and then we do our 48 million. Now, in this word form, do we have any thousands? Are there any 100,000s, 10,000s, 1,000s? No. But can we leave the number just like this? No, because this would only be 40,048. We need to show that it's 40 billion, 48 million. So that means we need those zeros for that thousands section. So this is our 100,000s, 10,000s, and 1,000s. Well, does that complete our number? Are we to the decimal? Not yet. So we need a placeholder for our hundreds, our tens, and our ones. So when taking and writing these out, you have to be very careful and make sure you don't skip over any place values. That's one reason why I had you guys write down that chart, because you can take and use that chart to fill this in. So we could have done this on the chart. We're going and I'll show you how to do that in just one second. That way it could kind of help you understand, okay, this is where my place values are, this is where I need to put zeros in to complete my number, okay? So I'm going to show you that right now. So back to this place value chart. So we had the 40 billion, 48 million. So if we look here, we've got our billions and the tens. So we know we've got 40. So we put 4D for our billions. We knew we had 48 millions. So that gives us 48. So we see those numbers right there. And now we can take and add zeros all the way up until the decimal point. So filling in everything in between. And that's how we can get our number. So like I said, this place value chart can be very, very helpful when trying to figure out where those missing places are within our numbers and help figure out those zeros to have placeholders for our place values that aren't necessarily represented by actual numbers, just the zeros to hold that there, okay? All right, now we're gonna look at the expanded form. So remember, expanded form is going to be all spaced out. So we've got 90 billion, 5 million, and 300. So these are all being added together. So the goal is to get a number like this 3,961. So we start with the 90 billion. So we're going to start 90, comma. Now, our next value is the 5 millions. So do we have 100 million? Nope. So we put a 0. Do we have 10 million? Nope. So we put another 0. We have 5 million though. So we put a 5 there, comma, because we have the comma right after that. So that's the last one of that. Now we move on to the next. Our next thing is 300. So do we have any 100,000s? Nope. Do we have any 10,000s? Nope. What about 1,000s? Once again, no. So there, it's just the zeros there. It's just our holders until we get to the 300. Now, 300. Do we have any hundreds? Yes, we do. We have 3 of them. Do we have any tens? Nope, because there's nothing after that. And there's no ones. So there is our number. So like I said, you have to be very, very careful. I've seen a lot of students in the past take and they see this 90 billion, 5 million, 300, and they might just write 9, 5, 3, and add some zeros afterwards. No, very different numbers. That's only 95,300. 90 billion, 5 million, 300. So be very, very careful with what these numbers represent, what their place values are. We don't want to decrease this from 90 billion down to just 95,000. Would you want to go from having $90 billion to just 95,000? No, I don't think so. So be careful with those place values, okay? So this is standard form, like I said. So each of these numbers we have here are all standard form. This one right here is word form because the words are all wrote out. And this is expanded form because we take each individual place value and write it out as its own number. Alrighty? Alright, the last part of this. Aaron has $200. Kenny has 10 times as much money as Aaron. How much money does Kenny have? Well, if we're dealing with a number that's 200, what's the next place value up from 200? Or from our hundreds, I should say, if we think back to our chart. What comes after 100? What would be the next one up? Thousands. Excellent. So we could think of this as just multiplying. So taking our 200 times 10. And remember, when we're multiplying by 10, it's going to bump us up a place value. So that's going to give us 2,000. So that means Kenny has $2,000. Okay, so this is all about dealing with that place value. So just looking at the chart can help you with this because remember, like we said from the very first thing we looked at, the pattern is when we multiply by 10, we're going to go up a place value. When we divide, we go down a place value. All right, and the last question we have here. Lewis has 10 times as much money as Kenny. How much money does he have? So these two questions play off of each other. Aaron had the $200, but Kenny had 10 times as much, so he was at 2,000. So now this one, Lewis has 10 times as much as Kenny. So we're taking our 2,000 now and multiplying it by 10. So we're going from having 2,000, bumping it up to the next place value. The next place value after thousands is 10,000. Excellent. So we should end up with 20,000. So that means Lewis has $20,000. We can use the place value chart to see this. So remember, your keyword for this lesson is place value. Place values increase as we multiply by tens, so we keep going up to a higher and higher value, and they decrease when we are dividing, so then we start jumping down. So that place value chart is going to be very, very helpful for you. If you didn't write it down earlier, I would suggest going back in the video and pausing so that way you can get that wrote down, because it is going to be very, very beneficial for you for the remainder of this chapter. Okay? Reminder, your key word is place value. Have a wonderful day.